Good evening, RFHL fans and RFHL players currently playing and or otherwise. It is Wednesday yet? No, I didn't say that right. It's not Wednesday. It's Monday night, but it's Wednesday very soon. And we still have playoff hockey to talk about. We've got 2 more weeks of playoff hockey. That first week of playoffs was crazy. I'm Ryan 2.0. And I've got Rob, the mayor. Mayor, where are you?
Well, playoffs ain't happening for me. So tsunami tacticians are out. So I'm on vacation, hitting up the front 9, back 9, all the 9s, and just relaxing, enjoying summer vacation.
And the 19th hole I see there, huh? So
you already know. I'm just enjoying the view, enjoying summer. I mean, it sucks. We're out. I do want to just say I'm glad that we put up a good fight, but it is what it is. And here's to the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's every season, you build all season long. Every game people play competitively. They fight hard even for the regular season, knowing that every team makes the playoffs anyways. And you have to appreciate that level of competition and desire to win games. But then playoffs roll around and it does have a different feel to it. The stage was full. The broadcasts were awesome and go popping off a little bit. We had a little bit of broadcast rivalry going on in some of the broadcasts for the games, and it amps up a notch now. You've been in the league for a couple playoffs now, right?
Yeah, I want to say probably my 5th or 6th playoff now. I want to say.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. It gets electric come playoff time. I mean, everybody knows you want to win, and seeding it is what it is. I mean, we obviously saw last season an 8th seed can win the whole thing, so it really doesn't mean everything where you seed. But I mean, yeah, playoffs it brings out fire in different people. And I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much yet, but you see a difference in the way certain people play in the playoffs, and these are the games that matter. So yeah, it's a very electric feeling in the gym.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that last season, the 8th seed winning the cup, that's only the second time that's happened. And I know I've probably mentioned a bunch, a little bit self promotion, if you will, but my rookie season, our Cowbells team and ended up being this 8th seed to win it all. And that was the first time it had ever happened. And I knew the league would been around for a long time, so I couldn't believe that. But it's only happened twice. And next season is the 30th season of the RFHL. So that just goes to show how, even though those regular season games, everybody makes the playoffs, the seeding, it does come into play sometimes like that. But hey, the 8th seed won again this past week, and they're moving on to round 2. So anything goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. Let's talk about that. I mean, I wouldn't say it was the upset, but it almost felt like an upset. I mean, you've got Brad, who has been clutch player of the year. I think he had 4 game-winning goals in the last 2 minutes of the game. You got Alex, who is probably one of the favorites for goaltender of the year, and it's just been a pretty awesome year for Sinkhole, who kind of had a slow start and then just took off. And just to see how that game played last week it was a very, very fun game to watch from the couch. I was stuck at home for the first half of that game watching it on TV. It was just very interesting to see the way the Champlain Mounds really pulled it together for the playoffs.
Yeah, they definitely played a little different than we'd seen all season. But then at the same time, they played the game you kind of expected that team to be able to play. And I think you're right. It'd be interesting to actually go back and look. I know Brad had the at least 3 game-winning goals where they came in less than 5 seconds left. It'd be interesting to see going forward, since we had all the games streamed and everything, starting to track game-winning goals in general for the whole season would be kind of an interesting stat to see on the sheet there. So here we are on the podcast yet again, putting more work onto Commissioner Sweetmeat's lap by coming up with ideas and everything like that. But yeah, that game was awesome. I got to get there toward the end of it, and I popped onto the broadcast right at the end because I think was it Bob was doing it by himself at the time, or someone was doing it by themselves at the time, and I jumped in and just kind of talked the last couple minutes. But even those couple minutes when I got there, that game was like it. What was the final? 9-5, but it was not that far apart until right towards the end. So it was a tight one.
Yeah, and I mean, I mentioned earlier about people playing in the playoffs, and if you've got playoff Seager, like that's a totally different game. And I mean, I feel like it was a big thing for Dan. I feel like that was his second pick going with Mark, and I think he knew he was just going to kind of try and build a core team around one of the best goalies in the league. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Mark kind of had like an up and down season, and that could be based on absences between the teammates, subs and stuff throughout the season. I mean, that affects the way the game plays.
Yeah.
But playoff Mark, if he's on, he's scary. It's dangerous. And he showed it against Brad. I don't think Brad scored a goal. I think from what I heard, Brad was shut down.
Yeah, you're right. Brad ended with he had 7 blocks, but he had 3 assists and a goose egg for goals, which is unreal. Even with Mark and net, that was very surprising to hear. And Mark posted a 93% save percentage. So you're right about that. He playoff Mark comes around, and I was surprised to see that percentage was so high, but he didn't have any shutout periods. So that was kind of interesting. Usually when you see something in the 92 and up range, there's usually a shutout period to go along with that. But some of those other players, I don't like calling them depth players sometimes, but those guys who get picked in the 4 or 5 or even late 3 round range, who then end up doing a lot of scoring for a team and making that difference. I mean, Le Tremblement is basically, that's their tent pole, right? So you've got Shane R and you've got Glenn, who both, I think, were 1 and 2 on their team in terms of points. Glenn paced that team with points. Let's call a duck, right? He was the man for Le Tremblement in terms of being in the right place, right time. He was scoring goals right in tight. I don't know if you saw what I saw, but he had a career season.
I had 2 broadcasts for that team, and I feel like in both broadcasts, I made comments about Shane and Glenn. The way both of those players were just phenomenal this season. I feel like they both could be great candidates for outplay the draft spot because they were just huge players for their team throughout the whole season. They were not only were they just getting goals when they were needed, but not just putting points on the board, they were preventing points. They were constantly getting in the right place at the right time. Small blocks here and there from Glenn, or just slowing down the play. Shane playing against them is just, he's relentless. He can run. He's honestly, as far as stamina and speed, he's up there with like the Concos. He's just, he goes. And I mean, those two guys, I think, really mixed it up and really made an impact for what I said in the first game of the season. The Tremblements is a well-rounded team. They're not a team that's like, oh, we got the Brads and the Foses who are going to score 100 goals, or we've got a very defensive core team like Fukushima or something. You've got such a well-rounded team. And from the very first game where every single person on that team scored a goal to now they're the 8th seed playing in the second round of the playoffs. And if Mark stays the way he's playing, this team, depending on how this game goes Wednesday, this team could be scary going into the finals.
Yeah. And, I think it would be tough not to mention that they didn't have Dan for a majority of the season because of kind of some injury that were holding them back from playing or playing comfortably. There were a couple times I think I saw him kind of start a game and then just pull himself out or play a little bit less. And so Dan kind of coming around, and he seems like he's kind of finally healthy, and that just adds that extra element, of course, the hook effect, if you will. But even when you talk about Dan Gladding, he's one of those guys that fly way under the radar. I've known him for a long time. First of all, one of the nicest guys in the league. I saw him just this past week play off hockey, and he kind of got tangled up with someone, or something happened in the corner and the play started going the other way, and he turned around and he made sure the other person was all right, or he was like, sorry, or he did something. He's like problematically nice when it comes to hockey, but he's also a great defender. He hustles hard. He stays with the play. He really pushes himself to keep tying up guys, even when he's suddenly marked up against maybe a guy's even first or second rounder, but he blocked shots too. And he had 5 blocks for them. He didn't get on the score sheet for any goals or assists, but I've always thought that, like, obviously block shots are a tracked stat, but defense is all about just simply being that guy who's Johnny on the spot, right? Are you in the right place? Are you clogging up a lane? Were you even, covering a guy off the puck so well that nobody noticed how good defense you were playing because the guy with the puck didn't have any, options himself and had to throw the puck away or something. So Dan's kind of that guy. Dan Gladding he's that sneaky good defender that will put them over the edge, like you said, for this team.
Yep, I have to agree with everything you said there. I mean, I don't really know Dan very well. With my broadcast in the first game of the season, Brian kind of gave me some insight on Dan, and he's matched everything Brian said and everything you've said all season. He's been very huge asset to that team. And again, I made a comment about how well-rounded they are, and that's what they are. Every single person on that team really makes an impact.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed, before we move on to the next matchup that happened that night, the 7:30 game, I wouldn't be opposed to mentioning too, just on behalf of Sinkhole, how great a rookie season Jeff had. His shot, I think, quickly started turning heads, and then he became a pretty commanding presence for them. You had to make sure you were marking him up. But talking about depth, I'm looking at that team too, and you've got George, who I think is probably one of the most underrated hockey sense guys in the league. He just always knows where to go. He's sneaky about finding space. He gets open. But then, of course, Maston, he played great defense all season, and he had a few games where his offense really lit things up. And then, of course, Keller and Lally, too, both were, the kind of guys who were out there, and they were just they were like your glue guys. They did what they needed to do at the time. They stepped up a few times when they had to and got some either timely goals or great poke checks, but they were just the gadget all around, type of player that made that team the 1 seed going into the playoffs. And then, of course, you touched on Alex already about his season he had, but, what do you think about Sinkhole before moving on to that next matchup? What do you think about the season they had? And obviously some teams feel like they leave stuff on the table, but last thoughts on that team for the season.
So Jeff is a big one. Everyone I feel like was talking about Jeff, and I never got the chance to play against them in the first time we played them. And they squashed us in that game without Jeff. And then the second time we played them, I was like, oh, Jeff's going to be here. Let's see how this is. Everyone says he's got this shot. And I think he got the first goal in that game and then the second goal. And I just was like, okay, why are we letting this guy shoot? Like if he's just shooting at will, and it just seems like he's finding the net every time. And I watched him on a couple broadcasts, and dude, that guy was the way that puck just leaves his stick was fantastic. He always knew right where to be. And I think Brad realized that after like week 2. I think Brad was like, okay, this is going to be my right hand guy. Cause I saw Brad set him up plenty of times for a perfect 1T, and they had great chemistry, the two of them. It was almost like watching Bob and Brad, the way they played with each other. And then Keller, I think I heard from when he was on the Podge that Keller plays defense on ice, I believe, and
yes.
very evident. So many times I would just watch him, how well he read the play, whether it was on a broadcast or unfortunately when I played against him, he would give so much space, like a cornerback playing defense against a wide receiver. The amount of space he would leave between a wide open player, and you'd think you'd had an opportunity to go cross the floor to this guy, and Keller would just boom, pick it off. Maybe not get possession, but he stopped the play. Like it was just, he did that so many times. He was definitely stellar. And again, that team was, when everybody on that team played well, which they did, they dominated. I mean, like the game they played against us, I think Keller and Maston were the leading scorers in that the first time we played them. So yeah, I mean, that it showed why they were the number 1 seed, especially with Alex. But unfortunately, like Tremblay-Mons showed up on Wednesday with the winning attitude. They wanted it. They didn't want to be the 8th seed. And I mean, I could tell they didn't want to be the 8th seed going into the last game. They played their heart out in the final game, last game of the season. And they did not want to be the 8th seed, but it happened. It is what it is. And they're definitely trying to show everybody that they don't deserve to be the 8th seed.
Yeah. Well, maybe it worked out better for them to have that chip on their shoulder going in, like you're saying. So On to that 7:30 game, which ended up being a 1-goal game, your game. And I actually thought for a minute there, you guys were, holy cow. It was, I think you pulled back into it down 2 or 3 to make it within 1. You had a couple real fast goals to make it a tight game again. And all that momentum felt like it was on your side. And I was just like, I was holding my breath calling that game with Alex because it was so exciting. But walk me through what you guys were thinking out there, especially in that third period where, like I said, I think there was a moment where you were down more than 1. And it looked like you guys just like all of a sudden just all like locked in for that last push.
Yeah, this game was definitely a very bulletin board type game for us, just because watching the podcast on Sunday, every single game, the 6:30, the 8:30, 9:30 game, came down to the Bob to decide who was choosing who's going to win the game. For us, clean sweep. Only game that everybody chose Meteor over us. So the chat Sunday night was just like, what is this? Like, no one thinks we stand a chance. Not a single person thinks we stand a chance. I know that we knew Kyle wasn't going to be there, and like losing Antilla was definitely huge, but like not a single person was in our corner, and it was definitely the fuel to the fire for us that night. And it definitely stunk I think we got down by 2 or 3 really early. And there was just definitely a lot of mantra on the bench in that game where it was just like, don't get frustrated. We're in this game. We're in this game. And then we came back. And I think we ended the first period tied. And then we just kept battling. It was kind of just back and forth. Tim played probably one of his better games of the season. He was on point, knowing where to be, stopping the shots that needed to be stopped. And we tried our best to just play well-rounded. Defense was the thing. That was our phrase for the whole season. The one thing we don't know how to play is defense. So, because everyone said in the first few weeks, this team can't play defense. Team can't play defense. So that was our phrase. The one thing we can't do. And we kind of fixed it up halfway through the season, but too little too late. But that third period, that was tight. I mean, we were neck and neck, trying to hold the lead. I think we had the lead at one point. Then it was tied, and it was just. I think I remember the feeling I had. It was, I think, less than 2 minutes left, and the puck went on a play, and it was Meteor's puck, and they said, "Okay." Rob was like on the whistle, and I'm screaming from the bench, like, "Don't let Paul shoot. We all know Paul's going to shoot. Paul's going to shoot." And sure enough, literally as soon as the whistle went, Paul just ripped the shot. That's all it was. So, I mean, for Paul to just take the 1-goal lead with like 2 minutes left was just definitely was gut punching. But I mean, we went out there and tried the best we could to get it through. But I mean, you got to tip your hat to Brett. I mean, the fact that we even got 8 in a very tight game against Brett was not. I mean, I feel like that was probably one of the only games that I walked away with a loss, and it just didn't feel like a loss. Like, again, everyone ruled us out. No one thought we were in that game, and the fact that we made it a 9-8 game, I took that. Tsunami Tacticians, for you. I take it as that's not a hard loss for me.
It's funny you mentioned Tim having a good game, because I wanted to point something out that was a little bit interesting. And this is where, like, I think I've always joked that, like, I'm a bit of a numbers guy. I like stats a lot. I think a lot of people know what I do for a living, and data are a big part of that. So one of the things that stands out to me is Tim's save percentage for that game. Now, I watched that game, and what I'm getting at here is that his save percentage was listed as a 79%. And I think as soon as you hear that number, you're going to think that wasn't a great game. That's not a great game at all. But what I wanted to say was that I thought Tim really played a great game. From what I saw, he locked down the hard chances when you guys needed him most. And I think that save percentage is more of a story about you guys playing that stronger defense than you might have been said you were playing throughout the rest of the season, when guys were kind of talking about, Tsunami's got to play a little bit tighter. They're capable of it, but they seem to be all downhill, whatever. Tim's save percentage in that game, based on the saves I saw he made, he played amazing. And I think the reason that's low is because you held Meteor to a lower shot count. And I think that's a testament to the defensive play you guys were playing in that one. And you might think 9-8, that's, I don't know, a little bit higher than I think even the average this year. It's funny, the scoring's down a little bit in the league. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also because more teams are playing a little bit of a hockey mindset game instead of just shoot, kind of style. But I thought Tim played awesome. And I remember a couple times watching some of the saves he made and some of the clutch shots where like, okay, I saw who was shooting. I saw where it was coming from. I saw the lane they had to shoot that. And Tim really had to make that save. And more often than not, he did. I just think he didn't get a lot of shots on net as much as usual because of your guys' defense in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to. Correct me if I'm wrong. You might be leading the league, but I mean, Paul he's a goal scorer. I mean, he shoots and somehow Paul finds the back of the net. I mean, no matter what you do. I mean, a lot of times Tim would say, "Let me see the lane. Let me see the lane." It's like, you got it, Tim. And sometimes Paul's shot that's like just a shot of iron that just flies, man.
Everyone knows it's coming, and then it still finds a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough because even when you game plan for it, they still find a way to get them open too, which is a testament to Meteor's game style. So they're going to be an interesting team to see for this week of playoffs too, because they play probably with the most hockey mindset and experience on the league. That's a polite way of telling them all that they're old, or at least the majority of them. I'm gonna get so much shit from Bob for
we don't have to sugarcoat it. We said it all season. I said it from the draft day. That team is just full of hockey knowledge.
Yep.
But between Paul and Bob and Dave King, and there's just so much hockey knowledge between everyone on that team. So no need to sugarcoat it. They know it. It's in the fact that they're such a dominating force, no matter where they go, whether they play in the RFHL, they play in the NBHL, wherever they're playing, those guys are dominating forces. So, hats off to them. Their age does not reflect their gameplay at all.
Yeah, and they got some good scoring out of it. I'm glad you mentioned Mike Curry, their rookie there too, because also we'll have to stat. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago on the pod, but I will have to stat check this with Sweet and ask if Mike Curry is the oldest rookie ever to join the league. But Mike had a great game. I think he had 2 goals in the first. He finished with 3 total. And I think there was a little bit of acclimation to the league for him. But once he got into it and he played with a little bit more of that finisher confidence this past week. Whereas I think for most of the season, you saw him be a bit more of a distributor and a passer and looking to make plays. And it was good to see that they got scoring out of that lower, like I said before, that depth scoring that usually you have to get when you get to playoffs. And they got it from him. So a 1-goal game, a tough game, and probably one of the better playoff games in recent memory for me. And I've got a good handful of them that I can think of, but that was a great playoff game to watch because, like I said, it came right down to the wire, and it was back and forth all game. And there were like 2 or 3 different times you guys pulled so close, and I was kind of like, oh man, is this going to be that overtime game? So it was a great one, and you guys played a great season. Hats off to you and the rest of your team again. Just I thought you guys were one of the most scary every single one of you was capable of shooting from anywhere, making a move around someone from anywhere. I still am having nightmares about your foot sticking out in our game against us. It was like week 9 or something. And I made a great move around you. And all of a sudden your foot just goes, whoop, and I was gone. If you didn't do that, I was in. So
yeah, cheers to Tsunami Tacticians. Great season. My last thing I want to say before we move to the 8:30 game is a huge shout out to one of the more underrated players, Shane Humphrey. The dude was clutch for us. He missed a few games, but when he was there, he was a huge clutch player, was able to fill the slots that needed to be filled. And he had so many great goals. I think he had like 7 or 8 goals in the last 4 weeks of the season. So,
yeah.
And including the playoffs. I think he had a hat trick in the playoffs. So, just a shout out to Shane for having what I would say is an underrated season, I want to say he was a 6th round pick. So definitely an underrated pick. Keep an eye out for Humphrey moving forward in the future seasons.
Yeah, he's quite literally and figuratively a quiet force out there. So that 8:30 game, our game. You were on the call for that one, I think.
I was statting that game.
Okay.
I was statting that game, and I just got 2 things to say. One, Mark Stolt, from the beginning of the season, I said, this dude is the most just out of the park rookie I've seen. Should not have been picked when he was picked. You guys, I mean, granted, I heard he didn't play in the rookie game, and that definitely helped you guys, but holy smokes, did you guys win with that rookie? Like, for him to be in the 6th round, he's not going to be in the 6th. Unfortunately for you, Mark, if you keep playing in the RFHL, you're not going to be in the 6th round moving forward. Sorry.
Agreed.
But that guy, and am I wrong on this? Did he miss like the last 3 weeks of the season?
No, but he did miss a handful of games. I don't think he ever missed more than one game in a row, but I think he missed 2 or 3 throughout the season.
I just felt like I feel like I didn't see him for the last 3 weeks. I know I broadcasted. I was on the call for your final game of the season, and felt like I missed him the week before. But either way, he came out playing in that game in the game last Wednesday like he hadn't been there for the last 5 weeks. He looked like he was like a man on a mission. Never stopped running. Just knew where to be at all time. I said it in the Discord. The dude was electric. He was scary.
Yeah,
he was scary good. And the second thing I'm going to say is, you guys pulled out the W. Fantastic, congratulations. But Kenton totally almost jinxed you guys for sure, 100%. And I got nervous. I totally got nervous because in the 3rd period, there was this little flubber dump in that Foes had. It bounced around, just rolled around, and Kenton kicked it to the corner. Not a save. You probably wouldn't count it as a save. Kenton turns around and he goes, "That's a save, right, Rob? Make sure you write it down." I was like, "Sure." So I wrote it down. After that quote unquote save, he did not make a save for 7 goals. 7 straight shots went in the net. I looked over and Sido was sitting next to me. I was like, ever since he said that to me, he hasn't made a save. It's been 3 goals. Boom, 4 goal. 5 goal. I'm like, Sido, this is nerve-wracking. Like, what's going on, dude? They can't, like, Firestorm can't score, and then they're scoring every shot they take on Kenton. What's happening? And then finally Kenton broke the curse, and then you guys just completely controlled it for the rest of the game. But yeah, I statted that game. You guys looked great. Unfortunately, Storm Surge just could not. It seemed like Storm Surge couldn't figure you guys out until maybe like the 3rd period. Like, you guys did the way you possessed the puck, the way you moved the puck was just, it was a very terrifying game, to be honest. It didn't seem like a playoff game. So like, I want to hear, what was it like from your point of view? Because you were Mr. Goalathon with this, like, not only the beautiful tip shot that I had to make an edit. I was like,
yeah, thank you for that. That was great.
That's all I could think about. I was like, I can't wait. That's going to be the first clip in the morning. And it wasn't, but yeah, I did. You Mr. Goalathon, what was it like from your point of view with a great game you guys had?
So now it's my turn to give you the 2 things that to rebuttal to what you were just saying. So the first one, again, I'm going to give you some insider knowledge as to what happened in that little 3rd period flub of a 5-minute stretch where all of a sudden people were like, "Is this going to be a game? Is this going to be a game?" So on the bench, we were talking and we were joking about how all season long people were like, "Hey, this team is us. They possess the puck really well, but they pass a lot and they don't seem to get scoring when they need, or they can't score a lot." So here we are, and I think at that point it was like 17-6 or something like that. And I'll admit, jokingly on the bench, I said, maybe we should shut everybody up and put up 20. And Sweet and somebody else on the bench, who I'm going to protect some names here, but on the bench, we were like, no, we do need to be a little bit sportsmanlike here. So we actually pulled up, and I don't know if you noticed, but like the line it was at the time, me, Sweet, and Mark were out there, and they scored like 3 or 4 quick ones, and then we're like, all right, let's switch. And so the next guys went out, and then they scored like 2 or 3 more after that right away. And what happened was we actually dialed it back because we didn't want to like pile it on. We didn't want to have Brandon go through. We didn't want him to have like week 3 PTSD or whatever it was from earlier in the season.
The tsunami tacticians,
Yeah. So we kind of pulled up, and they have the right players to pounce on that. Tom and Jesse and Fos all noticed that we were kind of half jogging the pucks and we weren't putting downhill pressure on the net anymore, and they pounced all over it, and kudos to them, because it's our own fault. Playoff hockey, game's not over yet. We might have had a big lead, but it's our fault for taking the foot off the gas, and they definitely took advantage of that, and they were really good at taking advantage of that. So finally, after that quick timeout, we all talked about it and we said, you know what, this is happening because we all dialed it back in our minds. We took away that edge we were playing with all games, so let's bring it back. And then Mark went out and dipsy doodled his way through the whole damn team and scored a short side forehand, shot that should not have worked as a left-handed shooter, and that was crazy. So, but I mean, the other side of the coin too, the other thing I wanted to mention, back to that deflection goal you're talking about. So I'm going to admit that was 100% self-preservation. That Sweet saw me kind of backpedaling towards the net. I looked over and Tom went off on a change, leaving me all alone. And we made eye contact. Sweet and I made eye contact. The wink happened and he just was like, I'm going to float one in and just go for it. And then the way he described it was, I went to float it in and I got so excited for how open you were, I put way too much on it. And he did. He threw it. It was like way up in the air, higher than I thought. And where it tipped was like, I put my hands up and it like tipped like below my right hand. I was 100% protecting the downstairs business on that shot. So there was a knuckle puck coming towards me. I was backpedaling. Things were happening. I was like, if I don't get a piece of this, I'm going to get a piece of this. So it was all self-preservation, but honestly, our team was passing so great and everybody was moving so awesome. And it might've, you said I was scoring a lot of goals and everything, but it would not have happened without how much the rest of our team was commanding presence. And I was just taking advantage of what they created. I mean, Sweet had like 3 assists or 4 assists. And I think Bill and Brian and Paul have kind of like gelled into this, like, they're like 3 clones of each other out there. We keep joking, like everybody's joking about the Helmet brothers, right? But if Brian put on a helmet, the 3 of them, you wouldn't know who was who, except for the fact that I think Brian is left-handed or Bill is left-handed. One of them's the other hand than the other. So if they all had helmets on, you wouldn't know who was who. And they played so great. And they were kind of our hold serve line for that game, if you will, because they put in a couple great goals, but whenever they were out there, they just shut everyone down. They just played the best defense. They were our best defenders, all 3 of them. So yeah, it was a lot of a team effort, and that's kind of our whole season, right? Is it's really just been a team focused season, and that's what kind of feels a little bit special. I was telling the guys this team feels, it's right up there in like maybe my top 5. Kind of something about the season feels unique. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can always tell the teams that gel, the teams that click, whether it be on the bench, on the floor, or I mean, you hear about the 5,600 million text messages. But your team has definitely been that team that I feel like personally I have been able to pick up like the chemistry, whether it's on the floor or if it's on the bench. Like you guys just seem like everybody clicks together really well. Everyone gels together really well. And I mean, it's reflective. And you guys are also essentially great sports as well. I mean, you're talking about dialing it back and having sportsmanship. And I feel like I noticed that the final game of the season when you guys played against Storm Surge, you guys just have great puck possession and you guys know how to do it. And you guys know how to control the puck. And I felt like I noticed you guys at the end of the final game of the season where you guys were up, I think, by a few goals, and the game was kind of out of hand. But instead of you guys just burying more goals and just continue to bury it, like I saw Bill have clear opportunities to take a shot, and everyone knows that Bill's got a shot, he can shoot it, and he didn't. He just possessed it, looked for a pass, and just got the puck moving. And it's like definitely a tip your hat moment to you guys, because you guys do a really good job of putting the bodies down, but then also just like not doing too much, so hat tip to you guys on that. And I mean, hat tip to Storm Surge as well for being the team that started off 0-5, I think, or 1-5 or 1-6,
something like that. Yeah.
And rounded out not 8th seed. And then when I did the broadcast of the last game, they won 3 out of the last 5 games. So, I mean, they really found a way to start coming together. And I picked them from the draft night. I said they were going to be the team to win it all. On paper, they're such a good team. They really are. With Foes and Jesse and Tom. And I mean, and then you've got another underrated player that, I mean, everyone knows their skill set has increased, but Ellen is just becoming more of a force on the floor. Like, you can't go into a corner battle with Ellen and think, yeah, I got this. No, it's not the case. So, I mean, the team is definitely a good team, and it seemed like, I don't know if it was discouragement or what, but it just seemed like if they got to a situation where they were fighting their way back, it just seemed like time and time again they were like losing that fight. They were just, it almost seemed like they were kind of like losing we're down by 5. How are we going to get out of this? Instead of continuing to play. I mean, you still saw the fight, but it just seemed like the heart was kind of diminishing a little bit in certain games. And it definitely, I'm glad they made the third period a battle, but it almost seemed like going into that third period with how well you guys were playing, it just seemed like they didn't throw in the towel, but it almost felt like they were almost to a point where like, what do we do? What can we do? This team is just possessing and scoring at will. So, but I mean, they made it a game in the third. They kind of got you guys on your toes for a little bit there. So,
yeah. And when I had Ellen on the pod a few weeks ago too, I made a note about how often she would surprise me and steal the puck from me. And then every single time I went up against her in that playoff game, she won the battle. I didn't win a single battle against her that whole game. So, and also Dan Thiesing too. He was a sneaky good net front presence all season. And I feel like he's gotten better and better in that role every single season since he joined the league too. So it's, they definitely, like you said, they're on paper. I think they were one of the teams where I was like, oh man, it's hard to pick against them, So, yeah, that's playoffs, right? Is you get these great teams, and we're seeing every single season now where there's a really good parity in the league among the teams every season. So it's getting harder and harder to pick out a team. Whereas years ago, you used to be able to look at one team, you're like, oh God, why are we going to run this? Let's just run it on paper and sim the season and start over. Like it was kind of like that sometimes. So, hey, that 9:30 game, Fukushima, Tipsy Talking Twisters did not go the way I thought it was going to go. And I don't mean that in the sense of who won, but I mean that in the sense of I was listening to it on my way home. Admittedly, sometimes I have to hit the road pretty quick. I've got a couple of kid ones at home, and everyone knows how that goes sometimes. So I was listening on the way home, and then my broadcast kind of cut out for a minute, and I wasn't able to like refresh it until I got to a safer spot and had to make a quick stop at a red light, and I refreshed it, and all of a sudden it was like 8-1 or 7-2 or something like that. What happened in that game that got that jump for Fukushima?
I mean, Fukushima just came out strong. And for me, at least from what I've seen over the last couple of seasons, when it comes to Makarchuk and net, is either Makarchuk starts off right off the bat, he's dialed in, or he starts off slow, and then by second or third period, he's unstoppable. And I think this is one of those games where first period started and he just could not get his bearings going. And between that and Tipsy Talking Twisters could not get shots. They were just the lack of shots and the lack of goals. I mean, Kaz started the game with a shutout period, and Tipsy just could not put the puck in the net. Everything they did was just failing. And then in the second period, they kind of still continued that relentlessness, but Tipsy was kind of like trying to balance the scales there a little bit. And honestly, Kaz was on point for another shutout period until Kurt ruined it and sniped a shot on his own goal. Yeah. So a shout out to Kurt for ruining Kaz's back-to-back shutouts. But for 2 periods, it seemed like Kaz was like the puck in your backdrop right now. He was absolutely on fire. Like, he could not be stopped. And Brian kept making a point that Kaz wasn't even standing half the period. He was in butterfly, just chilling for a lot of it. And that kind of shows the defense that Fukushima was putting on. Tipsy could not get close to the net. They couldn't get clear shots on the net. And unfortunately, it kind of paid for it. I mean, they started to kind of come to life a little bit in the third. And again, like I said, Matt, I feel like by the third period was in his zone. I mean, the score slowly got less and less as the game went on for Fukushima. But Fukushima, as everyone said from the beginning, they're going to be a tough team to play against. You've got Dr. K, you've got Furlana, you got Sidor. Just those 3 guys alone. If that team only had those 3 guys on their team, they would just be just a tough team to play against, but they got
Yeah.
hurt. The team it's a good team and they're tough.
I think it's worth noting too, in that game, Dr. K was held pointless. He had no goals, no assists. He did have one blocked shot, but that just goes to show how much, like I was saying earlier with some other games and some other players, there's so much that doesn't show up on a stat sheet that makes someone so effective for a team. And that doesn't even have to come through in terms of like even just assists. If you're out there doing what you do and you're battling for pucks and you're just wearing other teams down by doing that, you're already contributing more, even you could argue even more so than others when you're playing that way and commanding attention or taking the opportunities away for the other teams. And obviously when one guy like Furlano, if you focus on him and he has a down game in scoring and maybe only has like 1, 2, 3 goals, you're going to see guys like Dr. K and Sider, they're going to eat, they're going to feast, because you can focus on one and then it's a 3-headed dragon, it's a 5-headed dragon, it's a 6-headed dragon with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's tough. And it's a testament to how good they were, because look at Tipsy's lineup and how good a team they are. I mean, Shane Ryan came back from, not being able to play for a little while and has been an absolute force. He came into that team, and it's nothing against Kako in any way. It was so rough to see him, take that and have to sit out the rest of the season after getting hurt. But being able to see Shane Ryan also come in and right away kind of, I don't want to say command that team, but really almost like he was like a calming presence a little bit, and really kind of settled them into a style that fit them really well. Mm-hmm. And he's a good floor general in general, because he can, make that play and make that pass and make that smart decision. But Whitmire is a fireball. Noobs is a pesky defender, probably one of the toughest. Haran is, I think, and I'll say this like straight up, I think Haran is probably the most underrated player in the entire league. He's, if not, you might be able to argue a couple others, like he's at least top 3, but I think he's the most underrated player in the whole league. Consistently getting drafted way lower than he should be, plays tenacious defense, blocks insane amounts of shots, and has like surprisingly really great hands inside the 3-point arc offensively. And then of course Cricket and Westgate Matt and them coming in and playing great defense and being able to, contribute when they need to contribute. That team, every single team that got eliminated from like we were saying earlier, every team the parity is great, but every single team that got eliminated this past week, we could easily be talking about them moving on to the next round, and no one will be surprised about that conversation. I wouldn't, at least.
I'm going to break anonymity or whatever that word is, but every year, I will gladly admit this, every season I have been in this league, I have voted Haran as outplay the draft spot. Every season I go, how is this guy getting drafted this late? I don't get it. Is there something that somebody else isn't seeing? Mm-hmm. I mean, not to spoil your fun, Haran, moving forward, but I mean, he's been just amazing. I think he's going to win block shots of the most blocks for the year.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, he passed Paul, which Paul's the legendary prolific shot blocker. So his defense shows it's always been there. And then his offense is just always great. And if you take away the combination of Konko and Shane's goals, Haran leads the team in goals this season. Mm-hmm. So and again though, I'm going to brag as much as I can about Haran, but unfortunately I think that's also what hurt Tipsy this season and hurt him in the playoffs is Haran was their leading goal scorer. And I think he only had 12 goals for the whole season. So, I mean, it definitely played a role in their season, unfortunately, with the fact that they just couldn't find the back of the net. And it burned them in this game where you get the team against Fukushima. You got to continue to score, and you've got to battle back, because that's the only way you beat that team. Take notes, Meteor. If you're not pushing on them, and if you're not shooting, you're not scoring, that team's going to just control the game the whole time. You got Furlano, who's going to shoot from anywhere, and he's not quitting. So, yeah, if you're not watching right now, Meteor, you should be, because I'm telling you how to win the game. Take notes. I beat Fukushima. I might not be in the playoffs. I might be in wherever I am, but I beat Fukushima. I'll take that with me.
There you go. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned one last thing too about Tipsy. I'm glad you mentioned the contributions of like Haran and his scoring, because they held him. He didn't have any goals in that playoff game, but he still played like, I don't know how to describe it. He played like, from what I did end up getting to watch and listen to, like he was still like, this isn't over. Let's go. Let's and he kind of lift those teammates up. And of course, Shane, I'm sure did the same and everything. But that team, like I said, any team could have won this past week, and I wouldn't have been surprised to hear it go the other way around. But it'll be an interesting off season for John Haran, because the secret's out. He's not going to get drafted as low anymore. I'm sure of it. So hey, playoffs going forward. We've got 2 games to talk about, and they're pretty good, I think, matchups. I was trying to like separate, being on a team that's still in it and having to talk about these matchups, objectively. And out of all the teams that are left, I might be most afraid of Le Tremblement. But I figure let's start first with that. What is it? We're doing 7:30 and 8:30 this week, I think.
7 and 8. Yeah.
7 and 8. Yeah, that's right. So 7:00, we've got Meteor and Fukushima. And holy cow. This might end up being the game of the year, to be honest. I don't know what you think about that, but
I mean, you got one team who is intensity level is 150. You know what I mean? And then you've got another team where intensity level is at least 115, but they've got an insane amount of hockey knowledge and great chemistry. You know what I mean? So not to say that Fukushima doesn't have chemistry, but sometimes the way that their play style is let's just get the puck to the net. I mean, as far as quarterbacking, I feel like the best quarterback Fukushima has is Ramsey. I mean, Ramsey is not a shoot first kind of guy, but he knows where to put the puck. And I think that's one dangerous aspect to have. But all the other guys, I feel like it's kind of, I got the puck on my stick. Let me battle. I'm going to shoot it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they don't pass, but there's a lot of shoot first mentality with some of those guys. And that with that intensity going against Meteor, who, granted, Paul is definitely the shot guy. Meteor knows where to be. They know how to move the puck around, and they know how to play defense. If Bob's out there, you're not getting open at the point. I'm sorry. It's just not happening. Bob never leaves the point alone. And Dave King is just, I think Dave King is just a wonderful defensive player. So it's just, the matchup is insane. And I'm excited to see how it goes, because besides Paul, I'm curious to see who's going to step up their intensity. We already know Paul will go to war against the boards, but you got Furlano, you got Dr. K, you got Sidor. Who on Meteor? Who do you think on Meteor is going to step up to bring the intensity to match that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you mentioned Bob and how good he is at covering the point and kind of has that hockey mindset. One of the, I think, underrated things about Bob is that he battles pretty hard. And I think it catches you off guard sometimes. So I think he saves it strategically for good moments and tough moments where it needs to happen. And if he can expand how often those moments happen, I think he can be the guy who might step up for them in terms of a little bit of fight. But then, it's so funny because we always talk about how Dave King's probably the nicest guy in the league, right? Probably the most even-keeled guy in the league. And there's a little, I'm going to let you in on a secret. There's a little edge to Dave King. If you can poke the right button and get it out of him, like he can play with a little bit of piss and vinegar. And it's really great to see, because when he does, obviously he's already a tenacious defender, but if you get that little edge to him and all of a sudden he's got like kind of that, he gets this like fire in his eyes, man. I'm telling you, like it's, you have to experience it just to know it's even real.
I've experienced it. I mean, Dave, as you said, Dave's a great guy. I mean, he's going to talk to me after the game and be all smiles, but
Yeah.
I've gotten knee to knee against the wall going hard. And all of a sudden he starts saying things and I'm like, Dave, is that you? Who's that? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
You don't say that, Dave. He just goes hard. And then it's one of those things, you're in the moment and you got that intensity. And I think Dave, I agree. I think Dave could definitely be one of those guys that someone's going to have to, it can't be Paul to match the intensity. So, and I think that's what Meteor's got to do. They've got to push the game. And I don't want to take anything away from Meteor's play style, but I think that's a big reason why we stayed in our game against them is because they didn't push the game. They just played the game, got ahead, and kind of tried to control. If they would have kept pushing and pushing and pushing, it could have been a different situation. And that's what Fukushima's going to do. Mm-hmm. Fukushima's not going to take their foot off the pedal. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and you can't just rely on Brett the whole time either. Brett's a phenomenal goalie, but you can't put it all on Brett right now. You've got to push back and get as many goals as you can.
It's funny because even after everything we've already said, we still haven't even mentioned Cody. And Cody Alves is probably one of their speedier, high motor guys. And the one thing I got to say for that team is that one thing I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, they just need to keep their focus too. Meteor seems like there's a couple times where I've heard them either kind of talking back and kind of wondering about a call or wondering what's going on. And if they can stay out of their heads for the game and stay focused, I think that'll also be a big key for them, because we all know that Fukushima is going to play that gritty, grindy style where things might happen. And the refs have done an awesome job of catching what they can catch, but there's so many things happening at a lot of speed out there in a small space that sometimes just all those bodies in a row, it's hard to see what's going on. So it'll be interesting to see if that focus ends up being a factor as well for Meteor in that game. And I think it's worth noting too, I was kind of waiting to see if you would point it out because we talked about it pre-show a little bit, but Meteor won both of those matchups against Fukushima. They played Fukushima twice in the season. The first time they played them, they won 9-6. The second time they played Fukushima, they won 4-3, a much tighter and closer game. So obviously, this is one of those, are we going to see a team win 3 times? It doesn't happen often. It happened week 1 of the playoffs. Our team beat Storm Surge 3 for the 3rd time this season, but it happens actually maybe not far less, but it definitely happens less often than the other way around. So maybe Meteor's going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat here a little bit.
I think, I'm going to throw a prediction here in the wind too with this, but I think the difference with this game too, and what kind of played a difference in the last game that they played against each other. The last game they played against each other was very intense. It was a very back and forth game, low scoring game. But early in that game, Furlano took a puck to the eye and left the game. Mm-hmm. I feel like Furlano, being number 1 draft pick, one of the most tenacious players out there, really can affect the way the game is played. That being said, I heard him say it last week. This is Furlano's revenge game for his eye. So yeah, this game's literally an eye for an eye. So I think Meteor's definitely going to have to pull their pants up and get ready to really go to battle here. But I think if Meteor can't find a way to push back on the force that Fukushima is going to bring in here, I think Fukushima is going to take this game. I think it's going to be a 2-goal game in my opinion. I think Fukushima is going to walk away with a W and go to the finals.
Yeah, it's funny because when you were talking, and as I was starting to kind of get a sense of where you were going with your final prediction, it pretty much aligns with what I'm thinking for this game. Also, the eye for an eye comment, that's good and also not great at the same time. But glad he's all right and everything. Hopefully nobody else has an eye for an eye in this one here. But you're right. I think there's going to be a close. I think it's going to be closer than not for most of the game. There might be a couple moments where one team pulls a little bit ahead of the other. We've seen that a couple times this season from all of the teams where they might build a little bit of a lead and then all of a sudden that lead gets chipped away at. So I get the sense that one team's going to come out a little bit quicker. The other team's going to be very good at adjusting and maybe being able to settle in a little bit. The team that I think is going to come out fast is the team that I think is going to end up winning this one. And that team, I think, is Fukushima. I think they're going to come out pretty hard and play with that kind of fire and that grit and that pace we know that they're capable of. I think Meteor will definitely make it a game, if not for the whole game, for a majority of it. But I do see this one being the kind of game where maybe it comes down to the wire and Fukushima gets a late go-ahead goal, and then maybe buries one or two more when Meteor starts taking risks to try to get that tie goal back. I'm going to say a 2 or 3 goal win for Fukushima in this one. So,
yep, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I mean, Wednesday's going to show us, So let's move on to this heated 8:00 matchup.
Is that a fire pun?
I gotta say props to you guys for the playlist. Paul kind of gave some insight on the playlist. So
how did you figure it out? We were wondering how long anybody might kind of start to notice or pick up on it.
Well, I didn't actually figure it out, but it was actually the next game after you guys. Glenn made a comment because it was like 2 weeks ago, and Fukushima had a playlist going, and it sounded very similar. Like there was so many different fire songs. So Glenn was like, "Did they rip your playlist?" And then ever since then, I could not notice it. Every song, I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "I get it." Nice. So props to you guys with the creative playlist there.
I actually think they did
spring into your chemistry.
Yeah, I actually think they did steal our playlist one week. They somebody didn't have their phone or something. They're like, we borrow someone's music, so we just kept ours going or something like that. So,
well, then they didn't jack your playlist; they just used it. Nice.
Yeah,
but I mean, again, like I said, that's just more props to your guys' chemistry. So, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think? What do you guys got going in this game? How do you feel like this game's going to go? What are your opinions?
Well, I mean, I kind of already talked about it a little bit. I think Le Tremblement might be the toughest team, or at least one of the scariest teams that are still in this. And so it's going to take a lot of focus, I think, on our part. And I will admit, me, I talk to everybody, and I've got a lot of, I got a lot of, whispers and hear people messaging me and all that stuff. And boy, I'm surprised to report that people are still like, there's still a lot of people who think, well, Firestorm's kind of peaked last game. They came out because the podcast probably fired them up or something. I don't know. They were like I've heard from a handful of people who said that it was a kind of a flukier game for us to be that dominant, and that they think we're going to lose this one. Or at least that they think we're not going to be able to be the team that scores and needs to score. And admittedly, the first time we played Le Tremblement, they were without Dan and Dan, but we were also without Mark, and they had, let's see, they had Tom subbing for them, so maybe we weren't down a player, but they had Tom sub for them, and Tom had an awesome game, like a crazy good game. I actually gave him a backhanded compliment afterwards and said, Tom, if you played that good for your own team, maybe you guys would have more than 2 wins or whatever they had at the time. I was just giving him like some playful banter, but boy, it was low hanging fruit. So I had to pick it. So I said to him, I said, holy crap, he had like a 5-goal game against us with like 2 assists, and he was just a madman everywhere. And so it's going to be a totally different team we play against this time, but we lost to them 5-3. Mark had a Mark game, and obviously he's capable of doing that at any time. And now Dan is going to push the pace, and Dan is going to play great defense. And you still don't know which Dan I'm talking about, but it doesn't matter because that's the kind of team they are. And we still haven't talked about Shane or Glenn. So, and their rookie, Sean, is great too. He's played out of his mind, for a handful of games, and he's always kind of been sneaky good in every game, even if his stats don't show up as a kind of flashy or anything like that. So top to bottom, they might be the most like balanced and kind of like well-rounded team. And it's going to take a lot of work, but I'm hearing a lot of people already kind of counting us out and just like already writing it off and saying, Le Tremblement's, they're kind of the team of destiny all of a sudden. And you guys, they keep saying we're just like, I don't know, not going to do it again. I don't know, like that kind of comments. And it is what it is, but maybe they're right. Maybe they're not. I don't think they're right, but I'm supposed to think that, right? Like I'm not supposed to like buy into that at all, but I think it's going to take a even team effort from us again. Like I said, with our game last week, it felt like everyone was contributing even if it wasn't goals or stats, people were doing the stuff that opened things up for everybody else. And I think it's going to have to be, we're going to have to almost play I don't want to say a perfect game, but it's going to take a very focused game to win this one. But we also are all very aware. And the last thing I'll say is that we are all very aware that we have an obligation to the league to knock Shane Reisengerterberger out of the playoffs because he's got 2 championships in a row right now. And no player in the history of the RFHL has ever won 3 cups in a row. We call it the unicorn, and nobody has ever gotten it. And so we have a obligation, a moral obligation to the league to win this game. And that's definitely something that I've also heard from a couple of the older guys. Can't let him win. Can't let Shane have a sniff at that. So we're going to have to play our hearts out, but it's going to take playing our hearts out, I think.
Well, I got to say that I am pulling for the Wedding Reisinger just because of the opportunity to win the 3rd in a row, only because it stemmed from our championship team.
Yes,
it started there, and he kept it alive last season, and now he's got an opportunity to keep it going. So I am pulling for Shane in this game. How I think the game is going to go may be different. One thing we haven't mentioned in either recap or even just now is fish and chips. He is, I feel like, kind of almost been under the radar this season.
Yeah.
I know he missed a few games, but while he might not be putting up the numbers that I feel like he has been previously, he's still a pivotal part of that team out there. He adds to that defensive core with Glenn and Gladding, and just like really shuts down that back end, then also helps quarterback that front end, allowing Dan and Shane to just go balls to the walls. The way that those 2 guys go, they can just continue to run, and they don't have to worry about what's going on back behind us because they've got John back there. But again, you got Mark. You've got a machine that you've got to figure out how to break down. And again, when playoff Mark is on, playoff Mark is on. And we saw it last week, and we've seen it in previous seasons. He's definitely somebody that can be knocked down. But as long as you guys can find a way to keep the chemistry you have, the puck possession that you guys have, the way you guys move the puck, you guys definitely can pull this out. Kenton's had the season of his life. Like, the dude's been playing out of his mind this season. So if Ken can find a way to get in the zone early, he told me in the last game that I broadcasted, I did an interview with him, and he mentioned that he kind of likes to let in a few goals early, and then that allows him to kind of lock in and get in the zone. Hopefully he finds a way to do that and doesn't get buried. But I mean, Le Tremblements this whole season doesn't seem to be a team that buries people. They've definitely pulled out the wins. They've definitely got the wins behind them, but they're kind of, I feel like I almost group them in the same realm as Tipsy as far as goal scoring. They're not a team that goes out and just buries people, so I think that's something that you guys have the advantage on, is you guys have been a team that can score goals. You guys can score. I mean, you might not have had the most high scoring games, but I feel like a lot of it comes down to the way you guys possess, because I feel like you guys are definitely capable of having more 15 plus goal games like you did last week. So again, my final call for this, I am pulling for Shane. I would love to see Shane pull out the W, but unfortunately I feel like the way that you guys play, the way that the puck moves by you guys, I feel like Mark's going to be overwhelmed. He's going to be he's going to look like there's a clip, I think, in the Discord of him getting turned around and has his back. And
yes,
I feel like, unfortunately, that could be Mark all game, kind of just dizzy, looking like a dreidel back there, just spinning around trying to find the puck, because you guys move quick and that puck moves quick. So I think I'm going to be taking you guys with probably it's going to be a low scoring game, especially if Kenton plays the way he does. I'm looking at like a 9-6 kind of game potentially. But I think you guys are going to be pulling off the W, and I think we're going to be looking at a Fukushima Firestorm championship.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I don't even know if I can and should make a prediction on this one because I just like I'm one of those. I think I know where Kenton's coming from a little bit, where like you almost have that like the weight and the pressure of like not letting yourself get scored on as a goalie, and then once it's in, you're kind of like, okay, well, it's out of the way, like whatever. The team will do the rest from here, and I just got to lift them up. But there is that little bit of pressure, and I always get, when I'm on the floor, even I come into a game and I've always got that little like edge of nerves, so to speak. Like there's that like I don't know, it's weird. Like you think to yourself, oh, it's just rec hockey and everything, but there's a little like nerves and a little edge, and then once you get out there and you start moving, it kind of turns into focus, or at least I turn it into focus. And I think that we're going to have everybody in our team have that level of focus in order to win this one. I really think, if I'm going to be very honest and have some radical candor for my own teammates here, it's going to take a lot of focus, and we've got the uphill battle in this one, I think. So if I'm going to make a prediction, I'm not going to pick against my own team. I think we can win this one. I think it's going to take a lot of focus. It's going to take a lot of that fire. And I want to say you're looking at maybe a 7-5 or a 6-5 kind of win in this one. But we'll see. It's going to be tough. And both, like you said, both goalies have been great. So who knows? But I'm looking forward to it.
Another week of playoff hockey. Super excited. I think I'm calling your guys' game too.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be calling that game. I was gonna do both, but I think Bill and the Bob are gonna do the 7:00 game. So I'm gonna call your guys' game.
Yeah, well, we're gonna need it. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to join you on that beach and have a something a little harder than a cold seltzer.
I'm gonna need another drink. I'm gonna have to go find the cantina or whatever.
Go grab a margarita. Dip your cup into those waves that aren't moving at all.
What are you talking about? The weather's great, man. The weather's great. Oh man, well, I missed the playoffs, but I'm loving it.
Yeah. Hey, awesome chat as always. I love sitting down and talking with you, Rob, the mayor here. And why don't you send us off? Since I opened us up, why don't you send us off here?
Oh, I'd love to. And I look forward to one more week of playoff hockey. And, is it Wednesday yet?